Great. So welcome back to the House Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. It's Wednesday afternoon, January 11th. And we are going to have a brief committee discussion that I hoped to have last week before we dove into our first bill. But I wanted to give folks an opportunity to just talk a little bit more than our very brief introductions our first day about what are some of the things that you're bringing to the committee in terms of your personal, professional, and legislative background. And if you have specific hopes or desires for this committee and the work that we're going to do over this biennium. So does anybody want to volunteer to go first?
Sure. Go ahead. Ladies first.
Well, Shea Waters Evans from Charlotte, and I also represent part of Heinsberg, the western border of Heinsberg. I guess southwestern border. And professionally, I went to graduate school for fiction writing. But then my undergrad was also fiction writing focused, but then decided not to make things up and became a journalist. Which I did. I took a break for a while when my kids were little. For a dozen years, I reported and edited as the editor of a couple papers in Shelburne, Heinsberg, Charlotte. And was hoping to be put on this committee because I'm super into fun things like municipal government and the relationship between state and local governments, and maybe not so much this, but I love a good zoning law and all that kind of stuff. So also, obviously, as a journalist, the open meeting laws, I think I know a lot about those things and am interested in that issue of transparency and the way that all works. So that's how I got here. And I'm psyched about it.
And more detail.
Sure. Yeah, I'll go. I think this is a good landing spot for me for a couple of reasons. You take the government operations side of things, like a lot of you have got a lot of municipal experience with being a selectman now for 14 years, 2 different stints in the town of Milton, my hometown, a town moderator at Justice of the Peace, Board of Civil Authority, all that stuff a lot of you have done as well, I'm sure. So I think they bring that component to that half. And then the other half, as we talked about in the earlier introductions, pretty much most of my adult life, a career military officer, finished up right here in our Vermont Air National Guard. So I bring that experience to the table. As far as like what I hope to, whether we were directly or indirectly see it, there's a couple bills I'm working with Lisa and some others out of the Guard Caucus that will, I think, be of benefit to the military component of our constituency.
Representative Hickman.
Thank you. So I think I introduced myself last time. A representative from the Orleans-Lamoille district, it's now a 2C district with Mike Marcotte. I actually, after I got out of the service, I was in the Seabees, the Navy Seabees. I really a Guilford boy, and after I got married, I moved just across the line into Brattleboro, and I was actually a Brattleboro selectman for 2 years. So that's.
What was that? What is the date on that one?
That was in 1987 and 88.
Okay.
So then we made the big move. We had actually, my wife and I had adopted 2 sibling groups through the state of Vermont over the years too, but we decided to move to Northeast England. Back in, I think it was 1990, we moved up there, but of course I couldn't stay out of politics to some degree and got asked to serve as a lister in the town law. So I've been a lister for 29 years now. So that's kind of my background as far as being on Gov.Ops. And like I said, I've been started out in Gov.Ops for 8 years and did a stint with ag and forestry, energy and technology. One of the things I'd maybe like to mention, Mr. Chair, is one thing that used to happen years back in committees was called sponsors 5 minutes of fame. And I'd like to see that come back. In other words, that board over there is gonna get pretty full with bills and index cards. And I know that it's the majority that sets the agenda, more or less. But I still think it's important for the minority and others that maybe don't have a bill that's gonna actually be taken up, but I think it's important to at least have their 5 minutes of fame. So going forward, we can at least fit that in.
Representative Boyden, do you want
I can. So I feel I was drawn to this committee. It was my first choice, based off of previous academics and a little bit professional, but I studied government and political science at Roger Williams University. And having recently graduated, that's still very present in my mind. But I have a large interest and knowledge in organization and oversight of our government structures, the management of our elections, and collaborating with local government. Also have a little bit of knowledge about liquor, just based off of family business.
Yeah, I did want to ask you to clarify that was the family. I think I have been asked by a couple of folks in the building if you are a Boyden of the Boyden Valley and.
Related, but
yes.
not.
Representative Chase.
Sure. Like I said last time, I'm coming in from energy and technology. I think as usual, I find myself in kind of the quiet corner with all the internet cables for state technology, cybersecurity, town municipality, making sure all the networks are secure. I kind of speak that language. So when we're getting into that sort of thing, that's probably going to be a lot of my experience.
Are you coding right now?
Yes.
No, that looks like.
There's a big difference between like medical professionals and IT professionals when you say somebody on your floor is coding.
Yeah. Just don't hit the blue
It's an
button on the
important
wall.
distinction.
Yeah, once when I was a kid.
Either of the representatives Hooper.
What do you think? You first or me?
You already started talking.
Hooper of Randolph.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I came to this committee in flight. I wanted an education in a different category of government a different area in policy. Particularly because Randolph Union High School seems to be a place where some of these social controversies are boiling over. And so I still have yet to learn sort of what comes through this committee. But one of the things I wanted to bring to this legislative session was not just a focus on climate mitigation policy, but also like emergency preparation in Vermont, because the policies that the Vermont state legislature passes in the way of climate mitigation are not going to solve the problems that we're going to see in Vermont and beyond as a product of being late to that game. So if there's anything that our committee can do in the way of preparing the state for the things that we're going to see as the climate changes and inclement weather becomes more common, I think that we should focus on that.
We had an orientation the other day on selective services. And I might be one of the only people you know that benefited from it, getting drafted in the early 70s. After that, I drove truck, moving van, loading everybody's possessions into the back of the truck, saying goodbye. seeing them 3 days later, you develop a close friendship with people that way. Sprayed pesticides, built houses, ended up here after a stint at Penn State doing social work, and did that for 28 years. I came to Gov.Ops because I also was president of the union here for 10 years. And while doing that, I was a lobbyist. And while being a lobbyist, I fell in really thick with Cola Hudson, whose picture is on our wall upstairs in the old room. And we talked a lot about the stuff that the committee did and he wanted. Cola was a unique person. So based on that experience and my desire to keep things honest, I ended up here and I kind of enjoy it.
Representative Murwick.
Sure. Well, before I get started, I just want to take a minute to introduce the intern that's working with me from UVM this morning. Mike, you want to stand up and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Michael Wright. I'm a dual philosophy and political science major at UVM junior, and it can be interesting for the remainder of the session.
Where are you from?
From Easton, New York, so it's right next to the border of southern Vermont, real close to Bennington and all that.
So you probably see him around. And looking forward to working together with him. I appreciate the chance to be here on committee here with you too. My background is in human services. I worked for years, childcare provider, after-school provider, administrator, and was on the Human Services Committee. And a couple of years ago, the speaker came to me and said, I need you on government operations for reapportionment. So the speaker asks, you go. And what I found was certainly a wide array of topics that we take up here. There's the nuts and bolts, just like with every committee. I think 80% of what we do is nuts and bolts. Not going to get a headline, but it's the important stuff that keeps government working. And but we also do some interesting stuff that's more far-reaching too, and I've been especially impressed last year working with Hal, who was part of the committee last year, and got quite an education on what it was like for a person of color living in Vermont, and working with the Racial Social Equity Caucus, using their lens for what it's like. And I think it's important for those of us who can to help make changes in those regards. That's one of the pieces I appreciate we bring to this committee, that whether it's social justice work that's directly happening in Vermont, whether it's through police and police reforms and training, we have an opportunity to make some changes here to bring us up into the 21st century. And that's one of the pieces that I appreciate that we get to do here as well. And who knows what comes across. You know, we're one of those catch-all committees that sometimes we get tossed things, sort of like House General, that
On your toes.
see who can catch this. So I appreciate that opportunity. I appreciate the work we do together in that committee process where, you know, if I stay open, I can learn and change and grow. And that's why I'm here. I've appreciated, I've worked with Mark for a long time, and I appreciate what he brings, and sort of like with my buddy Tom Burdett, we kid each other when we vote the same way on something, but I would consider him a friend, just like Tom, and I think we've learned from each other, and we put the state of Vermont first, and that's something I appreciate about you and everyone that comes here, that, you know, we're here as Vermonters first, and We might not agree all the time, but we can listen to each other. And looking forward to the year ahead.
Before our honorable vice chair goes, I just wanted to mention that Representative Nugent couldn't be here this afternoon, but I'll give her an opportunity to remind her to take a look at this short video stream on this if she wants to learn a little bit more about us, and we'll give her a few minutes the next time we all get together and have a little open time. But Representative Byron, would you like to give us a little exposition?
Sure. So how did I get here? So my background's in restaurants hospitality. My district mate across the hall, chair of appropriations, used to frequently hold meetings in my cafe. So I started asking questions. And I guess this was probably around the time of your first term, the pizza days era. Yep. And so I just started saying, like, you know, I philosophically agreed with like what you're trying to do here, but there was a little function in here that I think could be a little bit cleaner. And shockingly, my input was taken into consideration. I was up here giving testimony on a range of things through a business advocacy organization that I had been on the board with for a period of time. And I guess, yeah, that's sort of the origin point. So a lot of the work I was doing with that group was in House General because of its reach into labor policy. So that's where I spent my first 2 terms. And as we were taking a look at portfolio dynamics and what homes where to land certain different topics, the military affairs bucket I've been working on extensively with Representative Hango and Representative Sebelia. That coming over here made sense to have a couple of us come with it. Department of Liquor and Lottery as well, subject matter I've been working on quite a bit. And then the other portions of the portfolio, I mean, I've got a rough knowledge base in, but I'm excited to learn more. And that's where I want to lean into, obviously, the attorney members of the committee, chair, ranking member, et cetera. So I'm just excited to learn more in that world and also be able to share knowledge with the help of Representative Hango on the military affairs and the DLI components.
Well, I'm really excited to have this opportunity to chair a committee. I think since we dove right into our first bill, you probably all can tell I get pretty excited. Representative Waters Evans, was great to hear you reference sort of a love of all things, you know, municipal and how municipal and state government connects. I've served, I'm wrapping up my second term on the city council in St. Albans. I'm not seeking reelection in large part so that I can focus on this work here at the State House. Doing both jobs for the last few years has been, it's a lot. You know, I have almost 10 years of experience working in renewable energy. And I have seen that business grow from about 25 people when I started to hundreds of people now across a couple of states and working all up and down the East Coast. And so I bring a business perspective along with some of my government experience. And was previously part of the restaurant caucus. We may have
There was a restaurant caucus?
Unofficially.
It was small.
But there was a time when Representative Byron and our now Secretary of State, Representative Copeland Hansis at the time, and I all owned restaurants, and I sold my business. Gosh, it'll be 9 years ago in May. But I ran and managed my family's cafe for 6 years, and that was a real experience, you know, thinking about what it's like to manage a small staff.
Period when you all just went out for mimosas every morning?
Well, you know, it was more of a competition for who could make the best one, Representative.
Yes, which results in many mimosas.
So,
True.
Mike,
yeah.
I think we might want to just take a minute and affirm that the most important person in the committee is sitting behind. And if you want to know what's really happening, Andrea is.
So
Open the doors without you.
I did ask Andrea to introduce herself last week, but if she would like to get in on this conversation on the record, I can give her a moment representing Rowicki, but I
Thank you.
apologize for us putting you on the spot.
I'm happy to be here. It's my fourth session with House Gov.Ops. I think I said that before. I don't know what else to say, but welcome everyone. It's a pleasure working with you all.
Oh, I really appreciate, even in just this first week, Andrea, your help anticipating the needs that we would have here in the room, helping us get settled in and coordinate. Being an advocate has been really, really helpful. Now, Representative Hango, did you get a chance to introduce yourself? Because I may have been remiss.
It's okay. I know you know me quite well, Representative.
But not everybody may.
Right, so.
Apologies.
No worries. I was the stay-at-home mom that if there was a need in the community, I was called on to do it. So I started out a long time ago, over 30 years ago, doing a lot of volunteer work, community boards, that progressed to more formal board experience, like with home health, and the hospital, various boards on the hospital. So things like that. School board, I've been a school board member for 11 years. So coming to the legislature, I was appointed in 2019 after the person who won the election vacated his seat, never took his seat, actually. Right. So my chair was Representative Vacancy in Rep. Byron's committee for 6 weeks in the 2019 session until I got there. Committee experience, I spent 4 years, nearly 4 years on the House General Committee with Representative Byron and really took an interest in the military affairs portion. And when the Adjutant General asked for a caucus, a special interest caucus, Representative Sibilia asked me if I would be interested and Rep. Byron if he would be interested, and we both said yes. We've worked together really successfully since the fall of 2020 and hope to continue that for quite a while. I am also now a co-chair of the Rural Caucus, which used to be known as Red Wing, the Rural Economic Development Working Group. And that is proving to be a lot of work, a lot of meetings, and all good because there are just a ton of great ideas out there. So I'm really excited to work with them and to continue to support the National Guard. I'm excited too that liquor and lottery are here in this committee. This was not my first committee choice. It wasn't my second or third either, but I'm really happy I ended up here. I feel like we've got a great membership and chair and support people. So I'm vice chair, obviously, also. So I'm really excited to be here as well. This is, it's a great chance to learn something different, like some of the others of you have said. I think if you spend, excuse me, a number of years talking about the same subjects, that it might get a little stale after a while. So it's great to have some new subject material to learn about. So I think that's about all about me, but thank you.
Well, I share your enthusiasm for the expertise and the variety of life experience and professional experience that the people around this table are bringing to our conversations. The speaker was thoughtful in listening to what everybody wanted in terms of what they were hoping to accomplish with their service over the next couple of years, but also thinking about as the jurisdictions changed, I am going to need as a chair people who have some policy experience with some of the things that we're talking about. And as I look around the table, like we've got it, whether it's the military affairs experience, which as a policy matter, I as the chair and many of us on the committee don't really have a lot of experience. We're gonna be learning as citizen legislators alongside folks who have the length of service in the military or have done the policy in the policy committee before. with liquor and lottery, that's a whole new area for me. I'm looking forward to learning about that. And that's one of the great things about doing this service, is getting to know a little bit more about the business of running state government, the businesses that work in Vermont, the policy that people need us to consider in order to be able to live and thrive and work. And we're going to have some fun together, and there are going to be hard conversations too. We're all bringing different perspectives. I think I'm going to really try to keep those conversations productive, civil. When we all need a break and a cooling off period, take a recess, do that. There are going to be times when we need that. And if you need something from me, from us, I want to really be accessible for all of you. And I hope that we'll have a really productive session. And after this first week, I'm feeling pretty optimistic that that's going to happen. So thank you all so much for taking a little time to share a little bit about yourselves. Unless anybody has anything that they need, we're going to take a break. I think we're going to have some support time from IT before we hit the floor at 3:00. So we'll get everybody set up with what they need. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that H-42, that bill that we voted out this morning, will be introduced on the floor this afternoon. So
We were
first, first out of the gate. Yeah, you should all be very proud of your hard work.
Testament to the efficiency.
Yeah, so that'll just be referred to Ways and Means